Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Auburn Energy Committee meeting on Monday, April 24th. It is now called to order at approximately 5:32 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and broadcasted by Local Access Programming. Is there anyone here in the audience tonight that's recording tonight's meeting? There being none, let's move to the first agenda item, which is, Matt, I believe you have an update for us on the wind turbine feasibility study.
Yes, I have a very brief update on this. I was expecting to have more when we set the agenda, but ultimately, I'll try to go back through the timeline as to how this took place. But we know that we had a tower or a weather measuring wind device set up behind BJ's on the Granger property, and some data was collected throughout 2014, 2015 or so. And then there was supposed to be a comprehensive report based on the data and the feasibility of having wind power in Auburn. There was some debate throughout 2016 about some of the services in that report as part of the grant amount. It's $15,000 worth of technical assistance, and the services didn't match the number as the years went on. Mm-hmm. So it was renegotiated and then reestablished to happen in early 2017, right around the time that Mr. Lesperance had left us. So the report, technical assistance, was established, signed by the town manager, and it was supposed to take place between January and April, and we're right at the end of it again. So I was going to set up a consult with, they're called Sustainable Energy Development, SED Consulting, to either reinvigorate this or just find out if we're still proceeding with it. The technical assistance works one of two ways. Either we paid them up front, 15 grand, and then they owe us a report, or we haven't paid them at all, and they're supposed to provide us a report, and then it's a match where we would pay the 15K and then get comped by the grant administrator. I'm not sure which of the payments have happened, if any, so I need to find out one thing, if we're out $15,000 and we're still waiting for a report as number one, and if not, if the town even wishes to proceed at that point.
So if the decision, so what is it procedurally to decide whether or not, regardless of, we know whether we need to settle this with them?
Yeah, I mean, we put up the tower to study the information. We never got a analysis report on it. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is supposed to provide. And given that wind energy isn't as lucrative for the incentives anymore, developers aren't really looking to pursue it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure where everyone stands on, I don't know how to say this any other way, wasting the company's time by producing a report that's not going to produce a wind farm. So I don't know how else to say that. I'm sorry. So that conversation needs to happen within the next couple of weeks, and primarily just to make sure that our technical services are carried out, and that if we've paid for them, that we are compensated.
That we are receiving them. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, could we bring it back as an agenda item for the committee here to make a formal recommendation for the town manager?
Yes.
Whether or not we feel it's worth the time.
Right.
So, okay.
I feel we should keep it on the agenda,
Yep.
just to make sure that we're updating.
So the committee. And we'll make a formal recommendation either way, but
Mm-hmm.
based upon if we can get the study.
Right.
Manager on next steps. Excellent. All right, our next, the Community Initiative Program, Public Outreach.
Sure. So this is really for the folks at home as well as the committee, but many of us have received a letter in the mail from our partners at Homeworks Energy Incorporated. This is from myself as well as Homeworks Energy Incorporated, just educating the residents about what Mass Save is, and to try to take advantage of it this year to go along with our community initiative program. So what this letter is, it gives folks an opportunity to have a free assessment. It writes no cost on there, but I'm not supposed to use the word free, but I'm going to. As a new homeowner last year, I took advantage of Mass Save, and I got like a dozen free LED light bulbs, a free surge protector, and they pressure tested my house to see if I'm leaking air in certain spots. There's a couple other things they would have done for free if I needed it, but I didn't need some of those things. But then they give you a report and it tells you, here's some other things you could do if you want to pay more money, if you want to get your boiler replaced, if you want to insulate your attic or install ridge vents in your attic. I did the insulation because I needed it badly. I think it was something around the lines of like $1,500, and I paid $300. So there's a lot of advantages to this, and we just encourage folks to do it this year. The big point to remember is if you did this last year, you're not eligible. So you need to wait at least 2 years before doing another Mass Save initiative. But I encourage folks to take advantage of it, even if you just want the free light bulbs. It's an opportunity to at least find some savings on your electric bill throughout the year and going forward.
And I have my assessment scheduled for Friday, so by the May session, I think it'll be interesting, so I should be able to provide some observations on having already gone through the program about 7 years ago, and I did new boiler, I did a lot with it to see what the value is in having them come back out. I'm going to be very curious, I think, especially when Christina was out here. I think just the technology itself on how they do the assessment sounds like it's changed significantly. So we'll be able to provide that feedback to the residents as well. Now I know we're looped in with Christina. Is she aware of all of the kind of town events that we had previously talked to her about that we might want? Does she have that calendar, or she kind of tapped into all of that?
I got her in touch with Kristen Pappas. The May calendar hadn't been released yet, but Kristen was going to continuously update me on those. Obviously, Christina's aware of the Independence Day celebration, but there's other events on our list that she has, and when it comes time to reach out, she'd be reaching out to both Kristen and I.
Excellent.
But if there's anything else that we've learned about recently that wasn't on our list, and want to bring it to our attention, that those are appreciated too. I think we covered some of like the Little League Parade and things like that on our list already, but
I think there's very little that Kristen's not at least tuned into as well, so if she's talking to her, then I'm sure we'll have good coverage there.
yes.
Great.
Oh, I do have one other thing. I don't know if I brought this up at the last meeting, but we had discussed earlier about the energy fair and how the energy manager no longer worked for Millbury,
Yes.
and that we weren't sure if we're going to proceed. Well, that energy manager still works for the town of Sutton. So we might still have 2 towns involved as opposed to 3. But since we did it last year, I don't know if Sutton will do it this year. It's a line of communication we should try to keep open and possibly prepare for over the course of the next 5 months. Wasn't expecting it.
When you had mentioned that she wasn't doing any more, I figured it was just for both of the towns. So.
And it turns out it's just one of them.
So it may be something we can add to probably maybe our next meeting to talk about. And I think if, based upon the last, like I said, doing it this year would probably be a little bit much, just also knowing the timing already. So we had started planning it last, I think, February.
Right.
Definitely worth for us to consider. All right, great. And we have a few staff updates.
Yes, we do. So I didn't print this out for everyone, but sorry. Ultimately, all I did was I took all of our net metering credit agreement invoices and slapped them onto a spreadsheet and divided it by school, town, and sewer pump stations. Ultimately, we have an offtake agreement with Rutland in the solar field for like 2 megawatts, not for exactly 2 megawatts, and a percentage of each of those is just credits are distributed to different buildings, whether it's the high school, a pump station, or town hall. And there's several of them. Ultimately, the schools are the largest users. They take up about 57% of what we get. The town buildings get 25%, and the sewer pump station get the rest. And each month we pay for a reduced value for the credits to what was Sun Edison at the time. We pay them 10.5 cents versus what we would be paying on our regular bill, which is averaged out to about 18.5 cents per month per kilowatt. So what I was able to do, I put these all into a spreadsheet. I was able to analyze some data, and what I learned is I just wanted to prove that we actually are saving money, first of all, which each of the months have proven savings. The value of the credit has reduced over time, but it's starting to recover. And in 2 months, I'll have at least a full fiscal year's worth of data, so I can give us a 12-month overview. But it's a very complicated system, and having it all in one spot where we could just find the bottom line is something I've been wanting to do for several months, and I finished it. So I just need the next 2 invoices to come in, and I'll have a complete fiscal year analysis for us to review.
And I remember us talking about it before, but when do we commit to that net metering agreement?
We did in December of 2015.
2015? Okay.
So I have 6 months of half of a fiscal year for some data, but I only have 10 months for FY17, which ends this June.
And how long is it is the agreement?
It's a 20-year agreement.
20-year, I thought.
And it's supposed to give us an estimated $4 million worth of savings. So I want to see if 1 year gives us 400 grand or whatever the number is. I think it's 2, but I don't want to throw my math off. But I want to make sure that we're at least on track, if not ahead. So,
do we have any opportunity to get out of it, even if
with penalties? Yes.
So you'd have to do the CBA, the cost benefit on that. So great. So maybe we'll add that on to hopefully for the June meeting, perhaps. We can look back at it.
Yes, it'd probably be a July meeting because I'll still need that data and the invoice from July. But yes, just wanted to let you know that we are just an energy initiative I've been working on. Just want to keep the committee informed.
Great. And the 2017 Green Community Grants.
I put this on as a regular update in case we get information on the grant, which we probably won't hear until June. But I did sit down with our new National Grid area representative and provided him with some information on our grant, on our streetlight project, the Auburn fire station LED conversion, a handful of projects just to inform him. And his name's Sean McGloin. He'll be our rep from now on. And one of the things I learned about the Green Community Grant is even though we applied for the full value, $250,000, and hope, fingers crossed, we get it in June, but one of the key points was there's incentives that National Grid will give you on certain projects, and it's too early to tell on 2 of the projects what those incentives will be until the analysis is done. It's called a retro commissioning of the Auburn High School and the police station. They just, a better way to describe it, they'll investigate the entire system, ducts, vents, dampers, everything, make sure everything's functioning properly. And if they find measures that they can improve efficiently and get parts for during that period of time, they can submit it to National Grid, and National Grid might cover some of it.
So the incentives are kind of commensurate with what the need
Exactly.
might be. So
we might get more incentives out of it than we thought. We only had about $6,000 worth of incentives on the initial grant. We might end up with 10. So it all depends. But it's not an exciting update, but it's still fingers crossed till June if hopefully we get the projects.
More to come.
I don't know if I listed them before, but I'll try to do it again. It's LED conversion at the high school. There's some recessed can lights. There's 250 of them or so. There's steam traps at Bryn Mawr that were on for the last 2 years in the grants that we hadn't received. There's retro commissioning at the police station and the high school, and there's a project at the library which would do some efficiency measures with their burner system. So it's 4 schools and 1 town building. I'm sorry, 3 schools, 2 town buildings.
And I remember Eric sharing with us that there was going to be a study on all of the municipal buildings and just the energy efficiency of them. I'll go back and look at my notes on it. It was just something that we thought would be interesting to see, that there was going to be some analysis done as to the, might not have been the energy efficiency per se, but the usage and where there were certain opportunities, and that could have been a springboard into like a different grant at another time. So
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look at my notes on that. All right, and then the last staff update on our LED streetlight conversion project.
All right, so this one's kind of exciting for me, so bear with me. I attended the National Grid Municipal Energy Summit at Holy Cross a couple weekends ago. Just by attending, we get a 10% reduction credit on one of our projects, so that's pretty nice. You can use that towards a green community grant. But Patrick Roach came here a few months ago, gave his presentation on the street lights. Then we have two different forms of lights, some that National Grid owns and maintains, and some that we own but National Grid maintains. And there's about, let's just say, 1,200 lights total. 300 in one group, 900 in the other. And I learned a little bit about this, and one of the problems that we had at first is we couldn't commit in December at that time in order to get on for the July deadline, I suppose. There's a proposal in front of the DPU, the Department of Public Utilities, right now to eliminate that 6-month advance.
Okay.
And we might be hearing about that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. If that gets eliminated, Patrick and I are looking at the next steps on how we can proceed. So far we've had his analysis. We've received purchase pricing on the S1 lights. And the next thing is to get his, not necessarily contract, but called a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding. And from there, we need to reserve the funds to make sure that we have them in order to do the retrofit. It's like $430,000. If we can prove that we have the funds, they'll allow us to proceed and get an audit. And the audit would show us every light, even on a map, so we know where they are, and the difference between each and what our maintenance would look like. So a ton of information could still come out, and the reduction of that deadline is really important because there's 2 ways we can get funding for it. So we have $430,000, right? We could apply for our streetlights next green community grant and for $250,000 of that $430 right there. You knock out more than half of it. And we can also piggyback on top of the technical assistance that National Grid provides for the streetlight conversion. You can get bulk grants. You might only have to pay 25% of the overall retrofit cost, and it shrinks the payback period considerably. So really exciting stuff right now for me anyways. But at the same time, hearing that 6-month period might evaporate in the next 3 weeks means that we could sign up for this within the next month or 2.
Did you get the chance to resolve what your concerns were on the municipal charges?
The maintenance side?
The maintenance charges.
That was a big question of mine, and I got to raise it at the summit and said, so their estimated maintenance costs also include a contingency. It's not a lot. It equates to about $12 a light. But my big question was, what about police details? And this is through the DPW director. He had questions about that and what these sort of contracts cost for most towns. And it turns out that some of the contracts you get through approved vendors are actually far less than what you're seeing that you're already paying for. And so long as we can secure one that's less than that, we can adjust our own contingency for what we think, how many lights need a police detail after we get the audit. Like if they're on busy areas like Southbridge Street or Route 20 or not, and we can create our own contingency. They could tell us all day LED bulbs should last you 20 years. They have 1,000 hours of lifespan or whatever, but you never know. Sometimes the ones you put in die in 2 weeks because they're defective. You never know. If that's the one right in Drury Square, you need a police detail. So we wouldn't have to commit to the conversion until we have the audit in place, and then we can decide and adjust our own contingency to see if we can afford it. And then when we negotiate a contract with a maintenance crew, they're going to be doing the work. It's not going to be DPW or fire trucks with ladders doing these fixes.
Okay.
It would be a contracted company to do it, and they already have to be OSHA trained. It's a requirement. So a lot of the information seemed to make sense to me at the time, and converting it and making sure that the rest of the town management understand as well is very critical, and we can hopefully accomplish that in the next couple of months. I'm not going to get the audit right away because there's still some steps, but I think that's going to make it very clear once we get to that point. But in order to get to that point, we need the town to set aside, or at least earmark, $434,000 for LED conversion. It's not an easy task, but if it's in the reserve or or whatnot. We just need to be able to identify where it is. We don't have to just keep it aside. So that'll be our next step within the next 2 to 3 weeks if we hear that the 6-month wait period has dissolved.
Okay, great. And so at that point, would we still have him potentially go to Board of Selectmen to present at one of those, or
Possibly.
TBD?
Yeah, it might not be Patrick per se, but we may have an opportunity for either a conference call with management at the very least. I'm not sure we'll get another presentation, but it's possible. I'm not going to rule it out, but I'm not confident it's mandatory.
At this point,
Yeah.
yep. All right, great. So we'll keep us posted at the next meeting. Excellent. All right, so we'll go to public comments. Do we have any public comment or informal discussion? We don't have any formal correspondence, only just sharing the correspondence that everybody in the town got from HomeWorks. Now, in reference to the minutes, we'll postpone voting on the minutes as Jackie, you weren't here at that last meeting, and so we don't technically have a quorum to vote on them. So we will roll that over to the next meeting, which will be on Monday, May 22nd at 5:30 here at the Auburn School Department at 5 West Street in the school committee meeting room. So with that,
Before we
yeah.
get there, can I just circle back? Only for the folks at home that at the beginning where we talked about the Mass Save program, I just want to read out loud the phone number if
Yes,
we have someone
yes.
to call. So if you're interested in that program and you want to talk to HomeWorks Energy or sign up for the Mass Save audit, you can reach them at 781-305-3319. You can visit www.homeworksenergy.com/Auburn-saves. And that phone number again is 781-305-3319. And if you have questions, you can always call me at Town Hall too.
And I will attach the letter to the minutes that will get posted from the town. Because I actually did not receive the letter, so there might be some folks in town who didn't get it.
Okay.
All right. So barring any other agenda items, would anybody like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting? Would anyone like to second? All right. All in favor of adjourning the meeting? All right. All right. By unanimous vote, the motion was approved, and the meeting is adjourned at 5:54 p.m.